video here is about the lawsuit from Palworld. I've heard a little bit, but I still am not quite sure. So figured we'd give Force Gaming a shot here of explaining it to us. So
Hey, fair warning, not sure I'm going to be able to keep it together for this one. Yeah, okay, so here's the story. Nintendo just filed a patent infringement lawsuit in Japan against Palworld developer Pocket Pair. They released a public statement.
what I will say is what I do know is that they're suing them for patent infringements about certain game mechanics in the game, and if they win, it's not good for the gaming industry because I don't think innovation should be stifled by patents and things. Although we need patents because intellectual property rights do need to be protected, but I also think that they shouldn't hinder things. Kind of like the Nemesis system from what was that game? Shadow of Mordor. That game was so fun because of that system. Spending a lot of time out in the open world fighting orcs for them to die and then come back later as a beefier up version, remembering our fights from the past and adding new dialogue that makes it unique for a video game is super fun. It just sucks that nobody can do anything about that because Warner Brothers Games has the patent for it there.
Announcing this suit on Wednesday, which said Nintendo, together with the Pokemon Company, filed a patent infringement lawsuit in the Tokyo District Court against Pocket Pair on September 18th, 2024. This lawsuit seeks an injunction against infringement and compensation for damages on the grounds that Palworld, a game developed and released by the defendant, infringes multiple patent rights. Nintendo will continue to take necessary actions against any infringements of its intellectual property rights, including the Nintendo brand itself, to protect the intellectual properties it has worked hard for to establish over the years. So the first thing to make clear here is that Nintendo is suing specifically for patent infringement and not copyright infringement. What that means is that they aren't suing Palworld because, let's say, the Palworld creatures look awfully similar to.
Yeah, that's what people need to understand. Yeah, it's not because the creatures look similar or anything like that. It's due to certain mechanics and things that are in the game, from my understanding.
Pokemon creatures. You might remember when Palworld first got popular, this was a big point of discussion, with many people even theorizing that some pals were directly ripping Pokemon models and then being slightly altered for their game. Now, even if we think that's true, that isn't what this lawsuit is about. And trust me, if Nintendo could sue for that, they would. Absolutely. If they had even the tiniest shred of evidence that Pocket Pair stole and ripped off Pokemon character models, they would sue them into oblivion. And you know what? That would be reasonable. You can't steal code or directly rip.
Yeah, you can't just like steal things from people, but putting like, I don't know, throwing a ball at something to capture something as a mechanic is inherently what I would say is a trap in real life, or using guns and things to shoot stuff.
Someone's
Like, you can't
assets for
do
your
this.
own IP. I mean, you can do that, but you can't do it without expecting consequences. But again, that's not what's happening here. Looking fairly similar isn't enough, which is exactly why Nintendo hasn't sued for copyright infringement. No, they are suing for infringements on patents related to Pokemon, or in other words, they're suing because they believe there are mechanics, systems, or features from Pokemon games that Nintendo has patented and claim ownership of that are similar to the ones being used in Palworld. Now, at this point, you might be asking yourself, can you patent game mechanics and systems? Yes, you can. It's about as stupid as it sounds. It is one of the most frustrating things to me in this industry because you will.
Yeah, I hate that more than anything. Like I said, patenting certain game mechanics that make it impossible for others to innovate on said game mechanics is bullshit. I think there should be some way to allow them to innovate on it without infringing on the patent itself, right? Like, because if somebody makes a Nemesis system in another game, it wouldn't hurt anything that WB does in the future, and it's not like they're using it to begin with because I don't know, maybe they could have put it in Suicide Squad and done something with the villains to actually fucking come back at you at a certain point, because they got cloned and they get the memories and whatnot, and then blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden, bam, you got the Nemesis system in there. But no, we got the fucking Suicide Squad kills the Justice League.
We'll get these games with really cool ideas or features.
And it sucks. They're in the same gaming stuff. It's like, why? I don't know. I don't want to fucking talk about
Hats
that.
off to the people who make them, but then no one else can use them for 20 years, all thanks to patents. It stifles creativity, it stifles the evolution of genres, and legitimately holds back game development. It just makes gaming as a whole worse. We get worse games because of these patents, or we don't get games that are as good as they could be. Without question, we have seen less innovation and growth in games in this hobby, all due to patents. Here's a few examples, some well-known things off the top of my mind. Not really, I've written them down, but okay. So the first one that particularly pisses me off is Warner Brothers.
This is the one that I was talking about, and it does really piss me off. I want to see this in other games so bad. Oh my god, I would love to have so many different games with this Nemesis system. Like, think about The Witcher 4 with a Nemesis system in it. Oh my god, that would be so fucking good.
Patent for the Nemesis system from Shadow of Mordor. If you don't know, in that game, you would regularly come in conflict with these unique named enemies over and over again. So you would fight someone with the name, I don't know, Gorthar the Destroyer. And then whatever the outcome of the fight, whether you won, whether you lost, whether you ran away, eventually later on in the game, you could bump into them again. And in that next encounter, Gorthar would remember what happened and comment on what occurred, saying something like, hey, you're gonna run away from me again? And then on top of that, though, they would evolve, getting stronger or weaker, climbing up in the ranks, or being demoted, all based on what occurred in your previous fight with them. And this would...
Like, that's such a good system to have overall in any video game. I don't see why it needs to be stifled to the point that, like, if you use it, Warner Brothers is just going to sue you to oblivion.
Keep happening over and over and over again, getting more layers, deeper interaction and history between the characters, and then these nemesis creatures fighting other characters, and then getting stuff based on that. It was just a super cool system, a lot of fun to engage with, and
well, yeah, not only did they engage with you, but they also made it to where they could engage with each other and rise up through the ranks. And that was cool too, because it added this new layer that, like, these people were also fighting against you, but they were fighting somewhat against each other for domination to get further up in the ranks to be a commander or a lieutenant or whatever. So it's very cool because not like you could like say you kill somebody and then they come back later and then they got killed by like another orc. Well, now they've got to get honor by killing you in order to rise up through the ranks, and they may have a completely different name, but still have the same, stories and stuff with you. And that's what I think is really cool about it.
it added a whole heck of a lot of drama and personality to what would otherwise just be fighting.
Not only that, if an orc that wasn't named killed you, he would become a named orc. That was cool too. So it would make up named people to put in the game because of how your fights interacted with them.
Forgettable mini bosses or elites in many other games. This Nemesis system was so awesome. Myself and a lot of people really, really liked it. However, it hasn't been used in any other game franchise since. Not because it wasn't good, but because Warner Brothers had patented it. So unless they happen to make another game that uses the Nemesis system, which they have not beyond the Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor games, we are not going to see any other game that has it until their patent runs out in 2035. Yes, we've got another 11 years of waiting. Actually, I don't even know if a game can start development using that system until after the patent runs out. So in which case, we might be waiting until 2040 before we see another game that has a Nemesis-like system. Thanks a lot.
I'll be 50 years old by the time we can get a fucking other Nemesis system. Oh my god.
Warner Brothers, really appreciate it. And what is so
Yeah, go fuck yourself, Warner Brothers.
Frustrating about this, like I said, is that it really stifles growth and innovation in gaming. Because yes, the Nemesis system was amazing. Like, hats off to the Shadow of Mordor developer Monolith. They made a phenomenal system that really elevated the open world experience. It just made it so much more interesting coming across these difficult encounters, these Nemesis, and having these layers and depth and history and backstory just based on what you did with them in the game. It was so cool. But now it's been 10 years since the initial release of Shadow of Mordor, and in an alternate timeline, we could have had many other games using even better, more evolved.
Yeah, think about that. Indie games that could have used it. Like, because those can be made in like 2 to 5 years. Double A games, 5 to 8 years. Triple A games, 5 to 8 years. Like, we could have had so many different games already that had it, but just because some dickhead at Warner Brothers 10 years ago patented it, we can't have it.
And improved versions of that system. In fact, I'll just say it plainly, many open world games would have been better, without question, if they could have implemented some variation of the Nemesis.
Far Cry would have been perfect. Sons of the Forest, another good example. The Assassin's Creed would have been really good with a system like this. I think the game franchise wouldn't be dying if it had a Nemesis system. We'd even do it in games like you could have a spin-off of Destiny where they had it in there and you had to kill certain things. Harry Potter with different wizards that you had to kill. Trying to think of a few other ones. Pokemon. Trainers could have had trainers come back after like leveling up their Pokemon and could have gotten harder. That would have been a good way to do the Nemesis system in there. Let's think. What other games would have been good with the Nemesis system? Ooh, Elden Ring. Let that one sink in. As good as Elden Ring is, imagine how much better it could have been with the Nemesis system. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
System, but they didn't, because in this timeline, in reality, thanks to Warner Bros. Patent, it hasn't and it will not happen for at least another 11 years. Now, I will add a note here. With patents like this, we could technically see other games use these things, but in actuality, it never happens, because if another game developer wanted to have something like that in their game, they would have to pay Warner Bros. A licensing fee, and that fee would likely cost a ton of money. So, as a result, they just don't bother. And that's the thing. The result is we don't get to play any more games with the Nemesis system until after 2035, or if Warner Bros. Eventually gets around to making more games with it. I think they have a Wonder Woman game that's supposedly going to be implementing it, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly.
Superhero games, any superhero game. Spider-Man, duh. Spider-Man would have been so good. Oh, God. Yes, Spider-Man would have been so good.
Correctly, we've only had 2 in the past
Arkham, the Arkham series, any of those.
decade, and we could have had a whole lot more. And if you haven't played the game, you might not fully understand, but this is, I think, a perfect example of a patent stifling the industry. Open world games, having the inclusion of Nemesis systems would add a lot more to so many games that are out there right now. And that one's really personal to me for that reason, because I played Shadow of Mordor and was blown away by the system when I first encountered it. And at the time I thought, wow, this is a great mechanic. Open world games are going to be so much better and evolving and improving on this in the future.
That's the exact same thing I thought, is that open world games are going to get so much better because we're going to have the Nemesis system in it. Oh, God, this guy speaks my heart.
But nope, that's not what happened. There's plenty of other patents that I feel have held back gaming as well. Another good example is the Bandai Namco patent on loading screen minigames. So for a lot of years, loading screens were a pretty big issue, something we had to deal with, especially back in the 90s. You would often have these games with loading screens that took a full minute or even multiple minutes of waiting before you could get back to playing. For the most part, this just meant staring at a progress bar, maybe getting some concept art, some tips on the screen. Usually it meant going up to get a drink or go to the bathroom. But then in 1995, Bandai Namco, they had this great idea. What if they offered mini games that you could play while you waited for the main game to load? And that was pretty cool. They did this with their game Ridge Racer as well as Tekken 5. Those are 2 most notable ones. Unfortunately though, they
Oh, I remember playing that, and then now we don't have that in any other game.
Also patented this idea of what they called auxiliary games while waiting for the main game, and so we never saw it again. This patent did happen to expire in 2015, but by that point, most games no longer had multi-minute loading screens, so there wasn't much use case for it any longer. But there was an entire 20-year period where it would have been awesome to have mini games in our loading screens for many different games beyond Bandai Namco owned ones, but we didn't thanks to Bandai Namco's patent. Here's a few others quickly. BioWare had a patent of the dialogue wheel with the cardinal directions of a wheel representing.
Is that why we don't have that in any other game? I always thought that was such a good system. Why doesn't anybody else put that in oh my god. I'm just now realizing that my life is a sham. Oh.
Certain sentiments or regular responses. Sega's patent of the arrow over vehicle navigation system from Crazy Taxi, which Sega then used to sue Fox over, as they had a similar mechanic in the Simpsons driving game. Katamari has a patent for its whole shtick, which is rolling an object around that picks up.
That's why we don't have any more Katamari games. Fuck my life. There's so many good patents that are ruining the industry.
Other objects in the environment.
I've always loved this game because it's so weird, right? You just roll around and pick up shit. I thought it was a cool, fun game. How fun would that have been in many other games? Do you imagine SpongeBob SquarePants Katamari?
Environment growing ever bigger in the process. If you wondered why we never saw more games like it, it's because of the patent. Bloober Team had a patent for playing in two alternate versions of the same space simultaneously on a split screen, which is a mechanic they used in the game The Medium. And then Nintendo also even had the Sanity System patent all the way back for Eternal Darkness, although that one was evidently specific enough that many other games have released with similar systems, but not exactly the same. But back to Nintendo suing.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that, like, if patents are too broad, then they cover too much, right? And that's where it's bad. But when it's specific to a specific, like, thing in the game that is, like, so specific that, like, you can't replicate it without ripping the game off, then that, I think, is in and of itself something that a patent should do, right? I don't think it should, like the Nemesis system, like, it's hard to say because you could argue that, like, that simulates real life and the fact of, like, what war would actually do in certain cases, right? Like, if you fought battles against other generals and whatnot, and then you have to face them again, they would know it and probably be upset and, like, have different words and stuff like that for you. So, like, we could say it's just a version of war, right? Um, so yeah, it's kind of crazy to me that it's so broad and it's allowed to be like that, and nobody's ever challenged it because they have too much money.
Pocket Pair over Palworld. Let's dive into that a little further. So right now we don't actually know exactly,
Oh yeah,
and
we're talking
apparently
about Pocket
Pocket
Pair
Pair
and
they don't know
Palworld,
either,
yeah.
exactly which patents Nintendo are suing for. They have said that there are multiple patents being infringed upon, but haven't clarified exactly what ones. Now, Nintendo has quite a few Pokemon related patents listed. Broadly speaking, these things cover the following: throwing a ball to capture weakened creatures and then throwing that ball again after capture to release them under your control, summoning and riding a creature you've captured via the aforementioned ball system, actively swapping mounts while riding them, storing captured creatures inside of a ball and or a terminal-like system, and how about this one? Encouraging healthy sleeping habits by tending to captured creatures in their game. I am not joking, they have a patent for encouraging healthy sleeping habits. Now, those are the dumbed down, simplified explanations of these.
Oh, I don't like that. That does not look good for Palworld if that's how it is, because those are, I could, that one's a hard one. I don't know, but I will say I do know that Nintendo's track record for suing people is 100 out of 100. So it doesn't look good.
Patents. In fact, is
Yeah, Nintendo doesn't go for a lawsuit unless they know they're going to win the lawsuit or can get something out of it, right? Like, you don't go for a lawsuit thinking that you're going to lose it, right? Just to stifle the other person.
every single one of these has very specific language with fine details on exactly how those systems are implemented, with minutia like exactly how is a ball thrown that captures a creature, how many shakes does the ball do in an attempt to capture said creature, the specific method of riding and swapping your captured creatures, and what specific ways does the game promote healthy sleeping habits. So for example, in the patent that they have for, quote, the gamification of health awareness based on wake up time, it reads like this: an object is to provide a user with motivation to enjoy waking up in the morning and guide the user to sufficient awakening by generating a breeding event in a breeding game of a virtual life form when the user wakes up in the morning. And it goes on from there. But yes, broadly speaking, that list of things are some of
That's very weird language.
the stuff that Nintendo has Pokemon patents for. They're just a few examples. They have many, many more patents pertinent specifically to Pokemon. Now, as of now, we just don't know which combinations of these patents Nintendo is claiming have been infringed. And as I mentioned, Palworld developer Pocket Pair, they don't know either. According to them, they've not yet been told. They actually released an official statement via Twitter in regards to the suit, and it says, regarding the lawsuit, yesterday a lawsuit was filed against our company for patent infringement. We have received notice of this lawsuit and will begin the appropriate legal proceedings and investigations into the claims of patent infringement. At this moment, we are unaware of the specific patents we are accused of infringing upon, and we have not yet been notified of such details. Pocket Pair is a small indie game company based in Tokyo. Our goal as a company has always been to create fun games. We will continue to pursue this goal because we know that our games bring joy to millions of gamers around the world. Palworld was a surprise success this year, both for gamers and for us. We were blown away by the amazing response to the game and have been working hard to make it even better for our fans. We will continue.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, it doesn't hurt Pokemon to have something like this. In competition breeds innovation. I think Nintendo's just scared because they can't innovate on Pokemon anymore with the current Switch and things that they have, and they're not willing to put the manpower and money into creating a system that works better than the fucking Xbox 360, right? Like, can we not? Like, it blows my mind that people still fight for Nintendo when they're so anti-consumer, man.
Continue improving Palworld and strive to create a game that our fans can be proud of. It is truly unfortunate that we will be forced to allocate significant time and matters unrelated to game development due to this lawsuit. However, we will do our utmost for our fans and to ensure that indie game developers are not hindered or discouraged from pursuing their creative ideas. We apologize to our fans. As always, thank you. It goes on. And that last bit is, I think, really the rub. It's so frustrating on so many levels. In terms of this lawsuit and the potential outcome, right? Well, if they don't settle out of court, odds are Pocket Pair will be required to make adjustments to whatever systems or mechanics are found to infringe upon Nintendo's patents. And then after that, they will probably also have to pay some sort of fee or
Yeah, and that means like a complete alteration of like how the game mechanics are too, and they look and feel and everything. So it's like you kind of are hurting Pocket Pair to do that to them. I just don't like Nintendo.
fine to Nintendo. Either way, Nintendo is going to cost Pocket Pair a good chunk of money, whether that's just the cost of having to go through a lawsuit, even if they are found not guilty of infringement, or if they are found guilty of infringement, having to then pay Nintendo directly. The game is not going to shut down. Well, I guess it could if Nintendo bleeds Pocket Pair dry enough of money that they go out of business, in which case, yeah, the game could probably shut down. And all of this in the name of some flippin' patents on game mechanics. Honestly, this entire situation, it's crap. Unless Nintendo has
Yeah, this is such fucking bullshit. Like, Nintendo needs to go fucking back to the drawing board and make an actual good Pokemon game, because I don't get me wrong, I am part of the problem. I've bought in every Pokemon game that they've ever made, including the newest ones, and I think they're fucking bullshit. And I think Palworld was like the next step forward for how games like Pokemon and Palworld and Tim and things like that are supposed to work. And for them to just like come out and say like you can't do these things because they don't like that they've gotten success and whatnot, it just fucking irritates me, man. It's just bullshit.
As like some proof that Pocket Pair stole and copy pasted source code from Pokemon games to use in Palworld. If that's the case, I totally understand, but the idea that they're suing the devs because the games have similar mechanics like capturing monsters in a ball or incentivizing healthy sleeping habits, like it's all garbage, man. Patents over basic game mechanics and systems are dumb and they shouldn't be a thing as far as I'm concerned. I am no legal expert. This is completely out of my depth, but just the basis of it is so frustrating to me. And I also want to make it clear, I am in full support of companies protecting their brand and protecting their IP. If someone is straight ripping Pokemon code, changing the colors and slapping a new name on the game, that's one thing, but putting patents on ideas for systems and features, it's just bad. It sucks now. It's always sucked, especially when it comes to this point where we are seeing lawsuits. It is bad for game developers, and it's bad for us, the gamers. This stifles creativity. It prevents more games from not just having similar systems, but then improving on them, adding to them, and making better games as a result. And Nintendo coming out and suing Pocket Pair, this is the kind of show of force that will likely prevent other developers from trying to make games that are similar in that monster capture genre. Indie devs, they don't want to risk getting sued by Nintendo.
Yeah, like why risk being sued by Nintendo or anything and to put out a game, even if I thoroughly love games like Pokemon. I love the capture of different little pocket monsters that they get to fight each other in Pal World. You get to kill them and eat them and do all this other stuff, and it's so good. It's so fun, and I want more games like that. We should have all these different games, and it's just that I think I think if Nintendo starts losing to indie developers when it comes to how games are made or like put out or the quality of the game, uh, then they aren't going to be in a position that they're one of the big three anymore. I think it's one of those things that they need to do things like this because as a big corporation, you don't want anything to rock the boat, and this definitely rocks the boat. So I think it's one of those things that we need. We need these Pal World should not go away. We should have more games like Pal World, or more games like Shadow of Mordor, or the speech system from BioWare and all this other stuff because or mini games and the loading screens, even though it doesn't matter now because we virtually don't have loading screens. But still, it would have been fun to have those in certain things like Skyrim. You had like a little guy that jumped up and down and like you got some corn or something like that that happened. Or oh, there's so many different things like different racing games that could have had mini games in them, fighting games. And it just sucks that like big corporations take all this time and effort out of like the innovation that could have happened, and it could help them in the long run too because if somebody makes something better off of your product and you can innovate then again off of what they made, you've now got three different things that got innovated on at that point that could give us new game mechanics and ideas that we've never even seen or can fathom because we can't add or add these different mechanics together and mishmatch all these different things to make something new because certain mechanics are locked behind patents. I hate it. I just hate it.
Nintendo, like, are you kidding me? So the end result is many won't bother. They won't try to make a game that innovates and expands upon Pokemon's shortcomings. They'll just do something else entirely. Now, I do realize as well, There's still a lot we don't know, and there's definitely, without question, a lot of nuance here. Other monster capture games do in fact exist that Nintendo hasn't sued for patent infringement, and we don't know yet exactly what Nintendo is suing for. They haven't specified. We see their patents, we know they're suing because they think multiple patents have been infringed, they just haven't said what ones. So the patents that have been infringed upon, how they were infringed, exactly how closely are Palworld's mechanics similar to that of Pokemon's, all of that will come out during the process of this lawsuit, assuming it all goes public. Even still though, like the Nintendo story specifics aside, generally speaking, I dislike this practice and what it does to gaming. The Warner Bros. Patent on the Nemesis system is the one that tilts me in particular. I think a lot of
Oh yeah, that one I still fucking hate. Like, so many different games.
my vigor in this video is like suppressed anger over that. The fact that more games don't have, every open world game should have a nemesis system, and they would all be better because of it. It's a blanket statement, but you honestly, man, it just tilts me
Yeah,
so much. It was
any open world game would be better with the Nemesis system.
so damn cool, and they've made pretty much zero use of it over this past.
It really should be a standard in open world games, because at the current moment, I don't see any innovation there. There's like different stories and things that you can do, and they dumb down different mechanics and don't have you actually like go to different towers and things anymore. But I think the Nemesis system should be a standard in every open world game.
Past decade, all because they have a patent. They're not making other games, and no one else can do it either. So I guess we'll just get to experience games with Nemesis systems sometime after 2035. If I'm still alive, looking forward to it. I just hate it so much, dude. I hate this so much, honestly. It makes gaming worse. No, thank you. All right, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. See you next time.
I mean, he's not wrong. It makes gaming worse overall to have these kind of patents in them. Um, I think they need to go away. I think it's something that we need patents to be gone. Patents be gone.